I want you to close your eyes for a second, unless you're driving, of course, and just pull up a specific image. It's an image that I guarantee is burned into the collective hard drive of pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at this skinny kid, face full of freckles, ears sticking out,
Mm-hmm.
and crucially, that single defiant spike of hair standing straight up.
The cowlick.
Yeah.
You're visualizing Alfalfa.
Exactly. Alfalfa from the Little Rascals, or, Our Gang, as it was originally called.
Yeah.
He is the poster child for innocent 1930s childhood mischief, the squeaky voice, the suspenders. It's wholesome.
It's safe. It's a simpler time. And that is exactly why the story we're covering today is so jarring. Because if you take that image, that funny kid, and you fast forward just 2 decades, the picture changes completely.
Completely.
We aren't looking at a comedy set anymore. We're looking at a scene with a .38 caliber revolver, a hunting dog, a glass clock used as a weapon, and a violent death over $50.
It really is one of the darkest Hollywood stories, and one that hardly anyone actually knows the details of. So today we're doing a deep dive into the life and the very controversial death of Carl Alfalfa Switzer.
And what's fascinating here is that this isn't just a true crime story. It's really a biography of the child star curse before that term even existed. You usually think of that for like the 80s or 90s.
Right.
But looking at the source stack today, Switzer was the prototype. We have material on his rise, his struggle to find an identity as an adult, and this investigation into a homicide that was ruled self-defense. But when you look at the details, it just screams murder.
So let's unpack this properly. How does a kid from Paris, Illinois, end up becoming one of the most recognizable faces in the world?
It was almost an accident, a complete stroke of luck. This was 1934. Carl was 6. His older brother Harold was 8. Their parents took them on a trip to California to visit family.
So they weren't out there for auditions or anything?
No, not at all. You hear these stories about stage parents, but they were just tourists. They went to visit the Hal Roach Studios, which was, the comedy factory of the era.
Yeah.
And back then, the studio had a cafeteria open to the public called the Our Gang Cafe.
And this is the moment, the accidental audition.
Exactly. The boys, Harold and Carl, they just started an impromptu performance right there in the middle of the cafeteria. Just jumped up and started singing.
No way.
And as luck would have it, Hal Roach himself, the big boss, was there. He saw these 2 kids belting out tunes, and he was impressed. Signed them on the spot.
Talk about being in the right place at the right time. But here's the funny part. Looking at the notes, originally, it wasn't Carl who was supposed to be the star, was he?
No, it was the older brother, Harold. They gave him nicknames like Slim or Deadpan. The studio thought he had the look, but Carl had that something extra. He was dubbed Alfalfa, and within a year, he totally eclipsed his brother.
Wow.
Harold was basically relegated to the background, while Alfalfa became one of the main faces of the series.
That dynamic had to be so strange. But speaking of talent, this is where it gets really interesting. We all know Alfalfa for that terrible singing, the cracking voice, the straining. It's iconic comedy.
But it was all a lie.
It was fake.
A total fabrication. This is the irony of his whole character. Carl Switzer was actually a very talented singer and musician. He and his brother were famous back home for their musical ability.
So the kid could actually sing. The squeak was an act.
He could sing very well. The comedy came from the directors, specifically forcing him to sing songs that were just outside his vocal range. They would play the music in a key that he couldn't quite reach.
That's brilliant, and also kind of cruel. I mean, it takes real talent to sing that badly on purpose.
It does. And by 1937, Alfalfa had surpassed Spanky McFarland in popularity. They were the kings of the lot. And while the kids got along pretty well, Carl's best friend was actually Tommy Bond, who played Butch, the bully.
His on-screen nemesis, yeah.
Right. But the parents were a different story. The fathers argued constantly, always about screen time, about salary. My kid is a star, he should get paid more. I mean, you have to imagine the stress for a 10-year-old.
But all good things come to an end. And in Hollywood, childhood ends faster than anywhere else. Carl Switzer left our gang in 1940. He was 12 years old.
And this is where the story usually gets depressing.
Yeah, the "Where Are They Now" chapter.
Well, it was a struggle. It's the classic trap. He was 12, but to the world, he was Alfalfa. He couldn't shake it. He did a few films, but he was quickly typecast as the juvenile. He couldn't get serious roles because the moment he walked on screen, audiences just wanted to laugh at the funny kid.
And looking at his filmography, it gets a little sad. There was a series called The Gas House Kids.
Yeah, it was basically a knockoff of the Bowery Boys. And Switzer was in his late teens, playing a character that was just
Hmm.
Alfalfa again. Still doing the comically sour singing. It was like he was trapped.
But he was working. And this is the part that just blew my mind. He's in some massive classic movies that I have seen a dozen times, and I never realized it was him.
Most people miss them. Did you know he's in It's a Wonderful Life?
No, I've seen that movie every Christmas for 20 years, where
You know the scene at the high school dance? The guy who has the key to open the gym floor and reveal the swimming pool?
the guy who turns the key and dunks George Bailey and Mary, that's Alfalfa.
That is Freddie Othello, played by Carl Switzer. He was Donna Reed's date.
Unbelievable. I will never watch that scene the same way again. That's legendary cinema history, and he's the guy pressing the button.
And he's in the Ten Commandments. A tiny part is a slave. And in White Christmas, you barely even see him. He appears as a photograph of an army buddy, freckle-faced Haynes.
So he's popping up in these masterpieces, but he's basically an extra with a famous face. That has to mess with your head.
Exactly. You're famous enough to be recognized, but not respected enough to get a real role. And by the 1950s, the acting just wasn't paying the bills. So he pivoted. He went back to his roots in a way. He became a hunting guide and a dog breeder.
Which is a pretty rugged shift for a Hollywood kid.
It was, but he was good at it. He had legitimate clients. Roy Rogers, Dale Evans, even Jimmy Stewart. He was training hunting dogs for the Hollywood elite, still adjacent to the fame, but serving them.
Okay, so let's talk about his personal life, because this is where the cracks really start to show. In 1954, he gets set up on a blind date with a woman named Diantha Collingwood.
And she wasn't just anyone. Diantha was an heiress to a grain elevator empire. Her family had money. They hit it off, got married in Vegas 3 months later, and moved to a farm in Kansas.
Alfalfa the Farmer. That sounds like a sitcom, but I'm guessing it wasn't funny in real life.
It didn't fit. Spanky McFarland, who he stayed friends with, visited him during this time. He told a story about how Carl was so bored on the tractor he had to rig up a radio just to stand the monotony. Spanky said, he may have come from Paris, Illinois, but he wasn't a farmer.
And the marriage didn't last.
No. Divorced by 57, the money was running out. He moved back to California. And this is where the behavior starts to get erratic. He wasn't just the lovable goofball anymore.
Erratic is putting it mildly. There are two incidents in 1958 that really paint a picture of a guy spiraling. First, the Christmas tree incident.
Right. December 1958, he gets arrested in Sequoia National Forest. He had illegally cut down 15 pine trees.
To sell.
Yeah, presumably as Christmas trees for some quick cash. He was sentenced to probation. It just shows a desperation, a disregard for rules.
And then there's the sniper. This one is like something out of a noir film.
January 1958, a year before he died. He was getting into his car in Studio City, and a bullet smashes through the window and hits him in the upper right arm.
Just a random shooting.
They never caught the gunman. It's still a mystery. But a random drive-by wasn't common then. It suggests he might have had enemies or was moving in some dangerous circles. It wasn't just bad luck.
Which brings us to January 21st, 1959. The day it all ended. And it all started over a dog.
A treeing Walker Coonhound, to be specific. Switzer was training this dog for a friend and business partner named Moses Bud Stilts.
Bud Stilts. Okay, so they were friends.
Associates, maybe? Drinking buddies. While Switzer had the dog, it ran off, chased a bear, got lost. And Stilts was furious. He demanded Switzer either return the dog or pay him its value.
Which is reasonable, I guess. You lose my dog, you owe me.
Sure, but Switzer didn't have the money. He was bartending just to get by, so he puts out ads offering a reward. Eventually, someone finds the dog. Switzer pays the rescuer $35 cash and buys him $15 worth of drinks. So he's out $50.
$50, which, to be fair, is about $500 in today's money. It's not nothing.
It's not nothing, but it's not a fortune. And now Switzer's annoyed. He feels that since it was Stilts' dog, Stilts should reimburse him for the reward money he paid out.
So he decides to go collect.
Right. It's the evening of January 21st. Switzer has been drinking. He grabs his friend, Jack Piat, and they head over to Stilts' house in Mission Hills.
And this is where we have to be really careful because the accounts start to diverge.
We know they arrived.
Yeah.
We know they banged on the door. Stilts later testified that Switzer yelled, "Let me in or I'll kick in the door."
So an aggressive start. He's coming in hot.
Very. They get inside. A fight breaks out almost immediately. And this wasn't just shouting. Someone accounts differ, who grabbed a heavy glass-domed clock off the mantel.
A clock. Wow.
And smashed it over Stilts' head. Stilts is bleeding. His eye is swelling shut. He retreats to his bedroom and comes back with a .38 caliber revolver.
Now we have a gun. This went from a fistfight to life or death in seconds.
Switzer lunges for the gun. They struggle. The gun goes off. The first shot goes into the ceiling.
And there were kids in the room, right?
Yes. The bullet fragment actually grazed the leg of Tom Corrigan, Stiltz's 14-year-old stepson.
Chaos. Absolute chaos. A bleeding man, a drunk former child star, a gun going off.
And Stiltz regains control of the gun, and then he shoots Carl Switzer in the groin.
Oh, God, the groin. That's horrific.
It hit an artery in his abdomen, massive internal bleeding. He was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. He was 31 years old.
31. And the official ruling...
Justifiable homicide. Self-defense.
Because Stiltz claimed Switzer had a knife. Right, that was his story.
Exactly. Stiltz testified that Switzer pulled a hunting knife and screamed, "I'm gonna kill you." And the jury believed him. Case closed.
Except, looking at our notes, it shouldn't have been. Because decades later, a witness came forward with a story that changes everything.
This is the contradiction that turns this whole thing into a potential murder mystery. Tom Corrigan, the 14-year-old stepson who was in the room.
And he never testified at the original inquest.
No. He agreed to, but the authorities just never called him. But years later, in 2001, he finally spoke. And his version of events is chilling.
What did he say?
He said there was no knife during the fight. He said that after the feeling shot went off and grazed him, the mood just shifted. He claimed Switzer turned to his friend Jack and said, "Well, we shot Tommy. Enough of this."
Like the fight was over, the adrenaline broke because a kid got hurt, he was backing down.
Exactly. Corrigan says Switzer and Piot turned to leave. They were heading for the door. And that is when Stiltz fired.
So he shot him as he was walking away.
Corrigan says Stiltz shot him as he was leaving. That it wasn't self-defense, it was retaliation. He called it murder.
But what about the knife? The police report says they found a hunting knife under Switzer's body. You can't just fake that.
Can't you? The report says they found a knife. But during the inquest, it was revealed that it wasn't a hunting knife. It was a penknife, a small pocket knife. And here's the kicker. It was closed.
It was closed. How do you attack someone with a closed penknife?
You don't. And you certainly don't scream, "I'm going to kill you," while holding a folded knife. Corrigan believed the knife either fell out of Switzer's pocket when he collapsed, or... Well, the implication is that it was conveniently noted to support the story.
And Stiltz had a record, didn't he?
Stiltz had a past conviction for perjury, a known liar. And yet they took his word for it. They didn't even call the stepson who saw the whole thing.
That is just, it's mind-blowing. You have a dead celebrity, a shooter with a perjury record, a witness who says it was murder, and a closed knife. And they just walk away.
It seems they just wanted to wrap it up. A drink brawl gone wrong. And honestly, Switzer's reputation as a hothead probably didn't help him.
It's such a tragic end. And to add insult to injury, the world barely noticed when it happened.
That's the final twist of the knife, isn't it?
Yeah.
Carl Switzer died on January 21st, 1959. Do you know who else died that exact same day?
No idea.
Cecil B. DeMille, the legendary director of the Ten Commandments.
The movie Switzer had a bit part in.
The very same. DeMille's obituary took up the front page of every newspaper. He was a giant. Carl Switzer Alfalfa was relegated to a tiny footnote in the back pages. Former child star killed in fight.
That is heartbreaking. Even in death, he was just an extra in someone else's movie.
If you go to the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, you can find his grave. It's near the old studios.
What's on the stone?
It has the Masonic square and compasses. He was a Freemason and an image of a hunting dog.
The very thing that led to his death.
A permanent reminder.
You know, we started this talking about that image of Alfalfa, the innocence, and we ended up in a hallway with a gun and a $50 debt. It just makes you wonder about the real cost of that kind of fame. He spent his whole life trying to be something other than Alfalfa, but in the end, he just couldn't escape.
And it raises that really uncomfortable question of justice. If the police had listened to the boy in the room, would the history books tell a completely different story? Was it justifiable homicide? Or was it an execution of a man who was just trying to walk away?
A question we'll probably never get a definitive answer to. That's all for this deep dive.
It's a story that reminds us that the characters we love on screen are real people, often living lives far more complex and tragic than any roles they play.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time.